We'll be discussing some of the issues of your recent books, of course. They're both out in Dutch translations recently. But first of all, I'd like to inform a personal question. This is, Richard Dawkins, are you well? Because we all heard you had some health problems last year.
I think I'm well. I look well. I think I'm pretty well.
Yeah. Okay.
So my voice may give out. That's the only thing. It seems to be okay so far.
Yes. You've done some appearances in the past days or weeks.
Yes, I was in Stockholm. We were both in Stockholm yesterday. And seemed to go very well.
Yes. Okay. And how's your voice?
I think it's okay. We'll see.
We think so too. Yes. The funny thing about these recent books, The Ancestor's Tale on one side and The Great Story Told So Far. This so far is in between brackets, isn't it?
Well, it's dot. So
yeah, right.
That's the most important part of the title.
So far.
Yes.
But they both, although you're from very different fields, they both feel like history. They talk about the history at the one side of life, and the other, the universe as a whole. So this must be a connection between you two in the first.
Probably a better connection than that, but yes, I mean, certainly the Ancestor's Tale is all about history.
Yes.
History back to the origin of life.
Right. You said there's a better connection? What would that be?
Well, the wonder of science. I mean, the beauty of science, the beauty of the fact that we're in a position to understand it as no century before has. It's a very in a privileged situation.
Okay.
And the fact that the two fields are looking at the universe, but asking somewhat similar questions, origins questions, and one in particular, the kind of questions that everyone has. And people often don't realize that the questions they're asking are really science questions, and they are illuminated in two very different ways, in complementary ways.
And for instance, the question everyone has might be, where do we come from? Is that something in that category?
Certainly, where we come from. Biology has one very important bit of evidence that describes where we come from, but so it's from a different point of view, from a universal point of view, physics. So it's nice to have, I particularly enjoy that complementarity.
Right, yeah, I do too. I mean, the origin of life, that goes back about 4 billion years. The origin of the universe goes back 14 billion years. It's one thing from the other.
Right. Talking about origins, how did you meet in the first place? I couldn't really find a very distinct point or event, but perhaps you have one.
Richard has a story about that.
Okay. I was giving a speech, probably in San Diego, I think.
Yeah, it was
in California. I remember. And I got the usual questions from the audience, and I was handling them fine. And then some chap stood up in the back of the auditorium.
Let me guess, he had red shoes and a hat.
And started haranguing me about how terrible I was, and how I needed to be less strident and less shrill, and to be more conciliatory and more tactful. And so afterwards, and I was a bit taken aback because this man spoke with such easy fluency, very different from the sort of halting delivery that you usually get, right, on these occasions. So I was quite intimidated, but then we met for a drink afterwards and had a long talk, and then we also reprised the same discussion in the pages of Scientific American.
Yeah.
A sort of email exchange.
All right.
In which we put forward our points of view, which kind of converged on each other after.
Eventually, and over time, yeah, they converged. But it was I think the first time they ever did that, it established a tradition that we've continued. It was a dialogue. And we enjoy those dialogues. I certainly do, because I do learn things every time. And so we began it as an email conversation, and Scientific American made it, published it. And
it's just being republished.
Yeah, it's just being republished this year.
That's good.
No, just in the magazine.
Yes.
Okay.
And then about a year later at Stanford, they asked us to do a dialogue because of that. And it's interesting. I think in many ways our views have converged in a lot of ways, I think. And I certainly become more strident.
I was just going to ask, which way did it converge?
Probably both ways. I mean, the thing that happened in Stanford, which was interesting, was that we pioneered what I've called the mutual tutorial,
Yeah.
where we have an on-stage discussion without a moderator, actually.
Forget it.
Which in some ways is interesting, and it's quite interesting just to have a conversation and for people to listen in on that conversation. The second time I did it was with Stephen Pinker in London.
Yeah.
And we had a huge audience of about 2,000 people. And at the end of it, the BBC got to hear of this. They hadn't attended, they got to hear of it. They asked us whether we would go on BBC television and do it again, do the same conversation. So we said we would. And then the BBC producer rang me up and said, "Tell me, what's the nature of your disagreement with Dr. Pinker?" So I said, "Well, I don't really think we have much of a disagreement. We kind of rather learn from each other." And she said, "No disagreement." Probably cancelled the whole thing.
Well, actually, I talked to some people before we would be on stage here, and they said that they agree on everything. Do you?
No.
You don't? Okay, that's reconciliation then.
I mean, I think that's the whole point of learning, right? I mean, it's that discussion, and it's and I hope that every time we have that discussion, there's some fresh new things. We'll see.
Yes, but your experience is that there is always something new to find out to discuss.
So far,
Yeah. So far,
not
I find physics so difficult, actually, that I'm always needing to learn things. Physics is much more difficult to understand than
See, that's where we disagree. Because physics is the easy part.
Yeah.
Physics is the low-hanging fruit, and and biology is much more complex in a way. And so physics has been so successful because it only deals with the easy questions.
Okay.
And then the hard ones are yet to be understood. Consciousness, all sorts, and the nature of the origin of life. So these are detailed questions. And to be fair, I think this century, although it's been an exciting time in physics lately, happily, I still think this century would be a century of biology.
It's low-hanging, it may be low-hanging in one sense, but it's not low-hanging in the sense that it's deeply paradoxical to the human mind.
Yeah.
Very, very hard to understand in an intuitive way. But the extraordinary enigmas of quantum mechanics, where we know in some sense it's got to be true because, excuse me, the predictions that you can deduce from quantum mechanics are verified to the umpteenth decimal place.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be true, and yet when you actually try to understand intuitively the assumptions that go into deducing those predictions, the human mind just gasps. With, in my case, it's pretty much horror, actually.
But everyone, no one understands quantum mechanics, so you're fine.
You should actually find that you should be worried if you think you understand it.
Yeah, because if you say you understand it, you don't.
Right.
In a sense, no one can understand quantum mechanics because we are classical, we live a classical existence, and as Richard has said, at least on one occasion that I can remember, that we evolved in the savannah in Africa to escape lions and learn how to hunt, but not to do quantum mechanics. And so it is amazing that we can do it. But at the same time, I would point out that there's much, that part of the battle that you, and to some extent I deal with, that you are at the forefront of, is the fact that evolution is also non-intuitive.
Well, that's right, but it's not deeply non-intuitive. It's just that there are huge timescales involved, and you just have to get hold of
It's
that.
hard to grasp these timescales. That's the main problem.
Yeah, but that just, you've got to think about the timescales that you can deal with, and just say, well, and lots and lots and lots more of that. But in the case of not only quantum theory, but also actually for me relativity, I don't know, Woody Allen said, Brooklyn is not expanding.
He also said eternity is a very long time, especially near the end.
Yes.
Next time we'll ask you to join in as well, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Talking about learning, Lawrence Krauss, you're learning biology all around as well.
Yes, and I've been pleased to learn in some of my books and learn from people. But although I have a hard time with one of the reasons I'm a physicist is I don't like to memorize things. And I'm not good at names and things like that. And so, if in physics you don't have to memorize anything in principle, and that's one of the reasons. But I do feel bad when I went to school. When I was young, my mother wanted me to be a doctor. And she, for many years, still was very disappointed I wasn't. But it was in high school that I took biology, and it was just memorizing the parts of frogs when I was young, and I dropped it. It had no interest in me, and I regret it in a way, because of course biology has changed so much since then. But it's fascinating, and I constantly want to learn more. But I am often intimidated by all the nomenclature, and I realize that there's jargon in every field. But that's a challenge for me.
And I agree with that. I think it's a great shame that people's experience of learning biology is memorizing the parts of frogs. Because it isn't just facts. And there are, well, at least since Darwin, I suppose before Darwin it was just facts.
Yeah.
But since Darwin, we have this magnificent overarching principle, of explanations of what it's all about.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderfully satisfying feeling to realize that there is a rationale for everything in life. It's the same rationale, the rationale that Darwin himself discovered, elaborated and fleshed out by his successors.
Right. Yeah, it's a shame that it would have been wonderful, and they still should do this now. And I think they do more in high schools, in these good high schools. But it would have been great to begin my class with evolution. That would have been a much more satisfying way to begin.
It's still the end. It's still the last chapter in the textbook. Right?
And that's another problem, at least in the United States, with physics. They have this ridiculous idea that you should learn biology first, and then chemistry, and then physics in most high school, which is the exact wrong order. Because, of course, chemistry is based on physics, and biology is based on chemistry. So what students get is these things thrown at them, like the Ten Commandments, that this is the case, without knowing why. And it seems to them like it's just a bunch of facts.
Right.
And so and I understand the idea that biology is kind of kinder and gentler because it deals with things you can see. But it's unfortunate because it would be a much more sensible way of learning if you learn the concepts of energy, which are important for chemistry, and then chemistry, which is important for biology.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure you read, perhaps not a new edition, but the old edition of The Ancestor's Tale by Richard Dawkins.
Yes.
So why should he?
Why should he? Why should he? Well, one of the reasons is Richard is such a beautiful writer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But it's on the one hand, it's an amazing book, but on the other hand, it's really the phone book of life in history. That it's about this fact, and it's crammed full of facts and stories about present life and past life and what came before that. And
I think there's also in England. I remember I got invited, but I couldn't go. Don't they sort of recreate that in places, the Ancestors' Tale?
Yes, there's a thing called the Ancestors' Trail.
Yeah.
Where a fellow called Chris General organizes a hike, a weekend hike, and the people are designated to be either in the human pilgrims or the chimpanzee pilgrims or the jellyfish pilgrims, and they converge.
Okay, it's a reenactment.
Yes, and they walk through the woods, and every now and again they stop in a clearing in the woods and come to a lecture, and then they go on.
And they recite from your book as well.
I'm not sure about that. By the way, I should say that the book is written jointly by Yan Wong,
yes,
who was my undergraduate pupil at Oxford and then later joined me. And we collaborated on the first edition, but for some reason it always annoyed me, his name was never put on the cover. And I insisted his name should go on the cover of the second edition, which is just out in Dutch.
Yes.
And he indeed was responsible for more of the changes in the second edition than I was.
Okay.
And the tales are general stories, lessons from biology, which sort of are supposed to liven the book up.
And this method of walking backwards in time and joining other species and groups of species, of course, relieves us from the idea that humans, in a sense, are special.
Exactly, that was the whole point of going backwards, that if you do your evolutionary history forwards, which is what is usually done, it gives the false impression that evolution is aiming towards humans, which flatters human vanity, but is an entirely false view of what evolution is all about. And so, by going backwards, you could start any way you like. You could have started with lobsters.
But there are not many readers in
That's right, yeah. Also, it's a great. So we start with humans, and then humans are privileged not because evolution is aiming towards them, but simply because that's the way we choose to write the book, because our readers are mostly human.
Okay. Your last chapter is about the ancestor, or the one we know as being the ancestor. Could you explain what this ancestor is? The title, of course, is The Ancestor's Tale, which in Dutch means forefather, not in plural, but in singular.
Yeah. It should have been plural, really. It's just by analogy with Chaucer. We wanted to bring the word tale in. The ultimate origin of life is unknown. I mean, we know roughly when it happened, sometime probably a little bit after 4 billion years ago. I mean, as a kind of event as it was, but it was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule, which gave a start to natural selection. Once natural selection starts, then everything else follows. But you've got to have something like DNA before natural selection can get started. And that's still a matter of speculation, and it may always be, because we will never ever know exactly how it started.
It's an intriguing question.
Very intriguing question. Yes. So one of the main questions I would love to know the answer to, but we may never know. If we ever do know the answer, it probably will be only of the form, oh, that's such an elegant idea, it's somehow got to be true. We'll probably never actually prove it.
I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of work going on. In fact, we're going to have my institute will have an event, which will be at among others, where we'll review. There's a lot of interesting work on the origins of life, and I'm confident. I'm more confident that we may have a potentially obvious route that works, that at least works without biology. It works with just chemistry, and that would be even to have one plausible route.
Well, yes, that's all I know. It never will be actually observed. It will only be. This is so plausible. It's so elegant. It's not to be true.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue, because the same may be true about the origin of the universe.
Yes.
And as I talked about in one of my books, that we have a lot of plausible arguments, but that demonstrate you could do things without any supernatural shenanigans, but they may always be plausible arguments.
Your own book, the greatest story ever told so far. It's like Stephen Colbert. He mentions these dots in every email from Trump, isn't it?
Yeah.
The origins you're talking about is, or more or less the history you're talking about, is of the universe itself, which is in many ways connected to the history of life, of course. But perhaps you can tell us something more about the essence of your story about the universe.
Well, it takes off. Richard's point was that you work backwards to try and make humans seem less special, and that the context of this book is that not only are we not special, but in fact we're just a cosmic accident. In some sense, it follows on the book I wrote before, which is Universe from Nothing, and the dot after that was why is there something other than nothing, which is a question that religion has usurped. These fundamental existential questions. And the next question is, why are we here? And the point is, religion pretends to have answers to both of those, but doesn't have answers to any of them. It just, just says, stop thinking. But this book really addresses that next question, why are we here? Because it points out that the universe that we see, which seems so designed for us, and again, it follows in a very natural way from evolution. The beauty of Darwin and the beauty of evolution is it shows that this appearance of design is an illusion. But it's not true just for life, it's true for the universe. The universe appears to be designed for us, but that's just a cosmic accident. And it could have been quite different, just as, in fact, evolution could have taken a different route, and we wouldn't be here, maybe, to ask these questions. But the wonder of science is that it cuts through that illusion, that the scientific method has allowed us to see that at a fundamental scale, the universe is inconsistent with our existence. That if some accident hadn't happened in the early history of the universe with some field freezing in a certain way, we wouldn't be here. And so there's no real significance to our existence, and that's fine. And I think that's what you learn from evolution too. So they're intimately connected, those questions. And so, but what I really wanted to do was the last book talked about the amazing revolutions in cosmology in the last 40 years. This one talks about the amazing revolutions in our fundamental understanding of matter and the forces therein in the last 50 years. And what's interesting to me is that most people don't realize there's been a revolution. They think of the revolution that took place partly here, with Lorenz and other people, between 1905 and 1925. They think that was the great era of the 20th century. But in fact, there's a period between 1955 and 1975 that I think in the far future, people will think is more revolutionary. And I wanted to focus on that because I don't think it's well understood.
Okay, which is for Dutch people, it's a pity because Lawrence is a real hero.
But one of the heroes of this is someone I had dinner with last night, whose name I can't ever pronounce very well, but he's a good friend of mine. But Gerard Tooft, you could say.
Gerard Tooft.
Yeah. And he's
I think Gerard got used to the tooth.
Yeah. I know how to spell his name because a colleague of mine at Harvard when I was there, a very brilliant man and humorist, pointed out to me that if he had monogram cufflinks, they begin with an apostrophe.
Yeah,
but which in English is very unusual. But he and his supervisor, Martinez Feldman, played an important role in that, in this standard model that is amazing. That, in my opinion, is the greatest intellectual edifice that humans have ever invented, and it saddens me that people don't know anything about it. And it's we're in an opera house which celebrates culture, and I think both of us agree that, or all three of us on stage, I'm sure agree that, for me at least, it's vitally important that science is part of our culture. That we celebrate the technology of science. That's fine, but unfortunately for many it eclipses the beauty of the ideas, which is, in my mind, and I know Richard and I agree about this. That's the real beauty of science: is the ideas, as Richard said, the poetry of reality.
The poetry of reality. That's what very well put.
Yes, and when I visited the CERN establishment, it was
in Geneva.
I saw this. What moved me was partly, at least, this magnificent testament to human cooperation. I mean, the thousands of people from all nations who worked on this magnificent project, this huge underground cathedral. Certainly one of the greatest achievements of humanity. And I was literally moved to tears when I visited there, as I was actually on visiting big telescopes as well.
But this must have been the first cathedral, like you say, that brought you to tears, isn't it? Was it the first cathedral that brought you to tears?
I admire great cathedrals, medieval cathedrals like Notre Dame and Salisbury as well. I mean, these again were hundreds of people working together to a rather futile end in that case.
They did create something of beauty. It's
very beautiful.
And in fact, in the book, I called it, Architectural Collaborative, the Gothic Cathedral of the 21st century, because the similarities are really amazing. They both, in one case, they're built over centuries, another over many decades. The Gothic cathedrals were built by artisans from many different countries. by 10,000 physicists from hundreds of countries, and they were all working. In the one case, it was the sort of the beauty of God, which I agree is kind of futile, but at least they created something of beauty. In the other case, it's the beauty of nature. They're both working towards trying to get the highest aspirations that people can imagine they can do. And that's the point. Religion really, at one point, was the highest aspiration. It's just been replaced by something that's much better.
Like science?
By science, yeah.
Okay. Well, when I think about similarities between the two of you, you seem to be enjoying storytelling. You have the tales, you have the great story. There's always this part of really telling a story, which on the one hand is a nice vehicle for bringing out thoughts about science and facts of science. On the other hand, it sounds a bit like it's just a story. So isn't there a problem?
I love stories, but I love telling stories. I think one of the joys of being a biologist, there are so many fascinating stories to tell with a rationale to make sense of them all. I'm always a bit baffled. I actually enjoy fictional stories as well. I like reading novels, but I can't understand why. I mean, why do we like reading about things that never happened?
Well, tell me.
I think because we're the same reason we invent religion. We want a world that's better or different. People are, the world seems so unfair and unjust and haphazard and accidental. And it's nice to imagine different possibilities, and people are probably hardwired to do that. But science, what's really important is science isn't just a story. Okay. I agree with Richard. Stories are wonderful. I think it's really important to tell science in the way of a story, because that's the way people have, for a long time, communicated. We are used to thinking that. But science is a story that makes predictions. And that's the whole point. If it didn't make predictions, if it was just a story of the past, in some sense it would be like religion. But it's a story that makes predictions. And that's what makes science so wonderful, because you can test those predictions. And that's the vital difference. Because a lot of people say, it's just like religion. You have your story, we have our story. And there's a huge difference. I mean, religion does make predictions, but they're all wrong.
And like which predictions?
Well, you can listen to people talk about the coming end of the world every year, and then they seem to forget that they have done, and they make it. So every, as Richard has said, in fact, at one point we were having a discussion, religion is a kind of, so it does make, it's not, people often say Stephen Jay Gould used to say they were non-overlapping magisteria, and that's garbage, I think, don't you agree? Because religion does make statements about the world, but generally those statements are wrong, right? They say everything was created in the present form, and evolution belies that, and of course it says, for some reason, the sun was created after there was light, it's sort of, the whole story doesn't hold together, and people have recognized that. Religious people recognize that. St. Augustine pointed out that you have to take that as an allegory, that the Bible isn't a scientific document, but I think that was just an excuse.
Okay. Your thoughts on storytelling and just stories?
Prediction is one way to put it, but another way to put it is that scientific stories are true.
Yeah. Now, we just agreed they were testable.
Yes, that's how we know they're true.
Yeah.
But that's true. That defines truth.
Okay.
And truth, I think, is, dare I use the word sacred? I actually do find something sacred about truth in a world where truth is getting a bit of a bad rap at the moment, and we're talking about alternative truth and things like that. And philosophers saying there's no such thing as truth, or everybody has their own truth, and your truth is as good as my truth. No, it's not.
Part of the problem is, again, the way we teach science. We teach science, when people ask what's truth, what it is that which agrees with experiment. And what science is not is a set of facts. Science is a process for deriving facts. That's what science is, and that's that process that is so successful. And if it didn't work, it wouldn't be worth talking about. But it works, and as far as we know, it's the best way for arriving at the truth. And And we can test that every day is by seeing if it works.
And if there were a better way, we'd adopt it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other point. We don't have these cloaks and agree in advance what's best. If it didn't work, we throw it out like yesterday's newspaper.
Like today's newspaper, you might say.
Yeah, especially when you
still, many people, at least from the media, I get the impression there's a lot of confusion about truth, science, beliefs, just so stories. Are you annoyed by this confusion?
Yeah, I guess so.
It is frustrating that, well, in these times, that there are things that are unambiguously true and things that are unambiguously false. And one of the problems with journalism, often, is that journalists are trained to look for two sides to every story.
Yeah.
And in politics, there often are. But in science, one side is just wrong. And you often, therefore, at least in the United States, and probably not here because I'm sure the journalism is better, you see people say, well, climate change or evolution, most scientists think. And that's just not the case. Intelligent design, as some people like to argue and try and advocate, is just wrong. But journalists, what they often do is you can always find some idiot, often with a PhD. Just say anything you want, and they present it as if it's 50-50 when it just isn't.
That's the real problem. Is my mic working?
Yeah.
The BBC has this long tradition of balance.
Yeah.
And so whenever they put forward some point of view, they're going to go search around, scrape the barrel to find somebody to put the opposite end of it. And I was listening to Robin Ince, I think it was, talking to Brian Cox, two British science communicators.
Brian Cox is an astronomer.
Yes, right. And they were talking about this, and I think Robin Ince said, so what should we do? Perhaps we should say, well, that's the science. Now, in the interest of balance, here's somebody who's wrong.
It's still, some people won't agree on this, and they're quite powerful. In the US, for instance, there's a strong force against fair science.
Well, it's it is getting worse. They used to say it was always bad, but it's now really getting worse because it's not just that people are ignorant or people are afraid of science. Those things have always been true. But this administration is actively choosing people who are anti-science to lead scientific agencies, from the Environmental Protection Agency onward, and they're getting rid of scientists from scientific advisory panels and replacing them with people who are actively anti-science. And that is dangerous because ultimately public policy needs to be sensible. Public policy should depend upon empirical reality. And it's unfortunate for two reasons. First of all, the policy is bad. But the scientists who could contribute so effectively to helping make the world better get discouraged and leave.
Yeah.
And you don't get another generation of people coming along. And that's really sad because there's so much opportunity. The scientists should be making the decisions. It's really important to say. I mean, I'm happy some scientists run for Congress, and we have only one PhD scientist in Congress right now. But others are running. But it's not that they should be making decisions. In a democracy, the public should make the decisions, but they should be informed. Okay? And they should be informed by science. So the scientists should be providing advice and information that can be then used in the development of public policy.
Would you say American scientists are vocal enough on this issue? Or are they...
I mean, we're vocal, but no one seems to listen. Well, it's not true. Look, people, this isn't unusual. I mean, I'm happy to see so many people here. But people are, what a lot of journalists and TV producers don't realize is that people really are fascinated by science and they want to know. Mm-hmm. They really do want to know what's going on. And it saddens me that the people who are sort of in control of the media or the ports to knowledge don't realize that people are fascinated. And every time you talk about science, if you get a chance in a public media forum, people are fascinated because, well, why not? It is fascinating.
Right. Okay. So it's the media's fault again.
Well, scientists for a long time had part of the public, at least in the United States, physicists especially.
Yeah.
Because as long as the money was coming in because of the Cold War, there didn't seem to be any need to try and talk about what we were doing. And I do think that scientists were part of the problem of just saying, we can relax and say, we don't have to explain why we're doing what we're doing because the money's coming in. And then, and it took a while after that for scientists to realize, and I do believe that if you want the public to support science, you better darn well explain why it's worth doing.
Yes, and I think that there was perhaps no longer a tendency for snobbery within scientists against people like Carl Sagan, who took the trouble to explain it more widely. And it's pretty certain, I think, that Carl Sagan was discriminated against, denied fellowship of the National Academy of Sciences because he was a popular communicator. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and there's still some legacy of that. I think more scientists appreciate the need for popularity.
Yes.
But it's like anything else. I think people become well known because they talk to the public.
Right.
And there are excellent scientists who aren't well known because they don't talk to the public, and obviously they're known as scientists, but public, and that's always been a big fiction, but that's okay. But I think now more and more scientists are realizing the importance of some people doing it, and that's really important too, I think. Many funding agencies, I don't know if it's the same in England.
Yes, I was going to say.
Many funding agencies in the United States require young scientists to have public repertoire, and that's ridiculous because the young scientists should be doing science. and
Who should be talking about?
Well, people who really want to,
Okay.
and are good at it. There are many of my colleagues, and it's vitally important, I think, that they don't talk to the public.
Fortunately, there's some who can really do it.
I mean, it's like anything. If you're forced to do it, you don't do a good job. If it's something you want to do, you do a good job. And there should be some people who are not penalized for doing. Yeah, sorry,
But like yourself, you've always been writing books alongside your own research, but for the general public, you might say.
I did not suffer in the way that Carl Sagan did. The equivalent of fellowship of the National Academy of Sciences in Britain is Fellow of the Royal Society.
Yes.
I am Fellow of the Royal Society, so I haven't anything to complain about there. But I think that there has been a tendency for snobbery within the scientific community, and I think that's disappearing now.
So I do think, young scientists who are interested in communicating ask me, how can I do what you do, or whatever. And it's not, first of all, I didn't have any plan to be doing this necessarily. I tell them that if they're good at science, they should be doing science. And that the more credible they are as scientists, the greater their ability will be to reach a popular audience. Of course, if they're writing, they can write locally or speak locally. But if you're good at science, you should be doing science, and then take advantage of those opportunities to communicate. And those opportunities will increase as your achievements in science increase.
Right. Richard Dawkins, when I told people we were going to be here on stage, of course, everyone was curious about atheism, about religion, etc., the whole debate about that. Has your position in this been any problem in your scientific life? I mean, you're very vocal on atheistic standpoints. Has it hindered you in getting scientific?
I don't think really. I mean, I've written about a dozen books, of which one is an atheism book. And the others, I suppose, are implicitly atheistic, but I do worry a little bit about being wheeled out as the spokesman for atheism, when just about any scientist could have been wheeled out.
Okay.
People make silly jokes when I sneeze and they say, bless you, I shouldn't have said that, should I?
I think here's very rare disagree. I think I've seen people talk about Richard and to some extent me.
Yeah.
And there are my colleagues who get mad. They say, why are you talking about religion? I mean, they're already antagonistic. They're just going to be more antagonistic. And the amazing thing is, it's quite hypocritical because in private they agree completely.
And that's my point.
Yeah, but they say, no, in public we shouldn't say the truth.
Yes.
And I say, well, good. Would you say the same thing about astrology? Would you say, look, in every newspaper there's astrology, so we really shouldn't say it's garbage. But there are a lot of my colleagues who have expressed to me concern when I speak about religion. And the funny thing is, and this is where I guess I've become closer to Richard, because in some of my books, the later books, I mentioned God in one page, and then I get tirades from people saying, this is why in a science book did you spend so much time talking religion? And it's in one page, okay? But people pick up on that as if you should not. You should always avoid it. You should treat it with kid gloves, and that's exactly what you shouldn't do, because if you continue to do that, it has a special protection, and people have to point out that it's silly.
Yes.
And because the emperor has no clothes.
Let's turn it Would you say atheism is inevitable when you are a scientist?
Well, if you're logical, but not procedural,
Yeah.
because we're all human, and that's a secret. Scientists are human, and that means
Some
you can
people
believe two completely opposite things at the same time. All of us do every day, just to get through the day. That you like your work or you like your spouse or something, and so we both know deeply religious scientists who are good scientists, but somehow are deeply religious. And so that's empirical proof that it's possible. But those good scientists don't let their religion get in the way of their science. And that's the business.
The professor of astronomy at Oxford, that means the head of astronomy, told me of an American colleague, a professor of astronomy somewhere in America, who writes learned papers in astrophysical journals, the mathematics of which is based upon the assumption that the universe is 13.7 billion years old. But he privately believes the universe is less than 10,000 years old. So he manages to, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I do not, Lawrence, you sound quite sort of almost tolerant of the fact that it is possible to hold utterly contradictory beliefs in your head at the same time. I don't think I can respect anybody.
See,
that's capable.
That's because Richard lives in Oxford.
Yeah.
And it's a different place. Which is a place in principle an enclave of rationality. And I live in the United States.
Please explain.
But it is, and Richard I think if I tend to pick people I know who are ultimately governed by rationality, Richard is probably the most rational person.
But
in the sense
an outright contradiction. I mean, on the one hand, the universe is 14 billion years old. On the other hand, it's 10,000. I mean, that is a straight contradiction.
But you're right. That is a straight contradiction. But there are people, and some of them I know who won the Nobel Prize, who were physicists who were religious and believe in similar. For example, he didn't win a Nobel Prize, but the head of the National Institutes of Health in the United States, a guy named Francis Collins, is a distinguished geneticist. And he has these wacky views about religion. And it's equally ridiculous. Well, he was to become religious. He was on a hike.
I know.
And it's the stupidest thing in the world. He was on a hike and he saw a waterfall that was frozen into 3 pillars. And suddenly that was the Trinity. That indicated that it was true.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone else said it, they'd be laughing.
It is stupid, but it's not an outright flat contradiction.
That's ridiculous. But then you know what I mean when I talk about evolution, and I do, and I got involved in some sense in the public issue, believe it or not, in terms of because I was fighting against intelligent design in the United States, and I was doing it because the biologists in the United States weren't, and so I thought someone should, because really this wasn't an attack on biology, this was an attack on science, and therefore as a physicist I thought I had as a scientist I could do this. But I have met so many doctors who come up to me and say, I don't believe in evolution.
Yeah, doctors, I mean, could you actually go consult a doctor? Let me tell you a story.
Take care.
Yeah. I once posed in print a hypothetical dilemma. Suppose that there was a doctor, and I made him into an eye doctor, so his expertise was really up here. And I said, suppose this doctor was a very good eye surgeon, privately believes not that babies are born because of sex, but because of the stork theory. He privately believes that babies are born by storks.
Uh-huh.
And I said, surely everybody would say that this doctor is not to be trusted. You would not go, I would not go and have my eyes operated on by this doctor, but not because he's not a skilled eye surgeon, but because somehow a mind that can countenance the stork theory as to where babies come from is not the sort of mind that I would trust with my eyes. And I got terrible lambasting from Americans who said, none of your business what his private beliefs are. It is constitutional right to hold daft beliefs that people want. So if he's a good doctor, pay him as a good doctor. So I realized this might be kind of Anglo-American difference.
You know, I remember when you first told me that story, and the amazing thing is it's come true. And it's scary. Because there's a guy who's running for president named Ben Carson,
yeah.
who's a distinguished neurosurgeon, was a distinguished neurosurgeon, but doesn't understand science at all, and not only believes the Earth is 10,000 years old, but thinks evolution is the work of the devil, and has said so. And it's more, I mean, in every possible way, does not understand science, and is anti-science, yet he was a distinguished neurosurgeon, which points out, and I'm sorry for the doctors in the audience, but the doctors aren't scientists. I mean, some doctors are, but you don't. I mean, doctors, especially surgeons, are very skilled at what they do.
But they're like copycats.
Well, they're very. They're very skilled and highly trained.
Most doctors are scientists.
But when you have a problem, with your car, bringing your car to a religious car investment,
It's a good question.
yeah.
It's been pointed out that car mechanics do actually use scientific methods. I mean, they'll test, first of all, is it the carburetor? Is it the distributor? And they'll isolate one thing off another.
But so do the surgeons. They'll play and they'll do it. But it is worth pointing out that most people don't realize that things are connected.
Uh-huh.
That nature is connected, and biology and physics are connected. And so if you believe the Earth is 6,000 years old, you should not get in a car. I tell us the Earth is 6,000 years old. So you're being hypocritical if you believe the Earth is 6,000 years old and you use any technology.
Anyway, you could stay home and read the Bible, isn't it?
Yeah, and you should.
Yeah. One of the points coming up always when we talk about these subjects is, but can we learn from science, from scientific principles, how to behave as a human being, as a decent human being? Richard Dawkins.
I always used to say no to that question. That science is silent on how to behave. I've since read Sam Harris's book, The Moral Landscape, and I think he may get a little bit too far, but I sort of get the point that scientific reasoning can guide you in your moral reasoning. Certainly moral philosophers secular moral philosophers have long used scientific reasoning in, at very least, pointing out inconsistencies. If you believe that so-and-so is wrong, then you're being inconsistent at the same time you believe that so-and-so is wrong.
Uh-huh.
And so I do think that science can have, at very least, an enormous input into moral questions. So, evolution...
But not necessarily as a guide.
Well, not a total guide, but if you're all hung up on abortion, for example, and then to have it pointed out to you on scientific grounds that the thesis that whose life what you're worried about is in all possible respects less conscious, less capable of feeling pain and fear and anything else than an adult cow. Or think back in evolutionary history at if you're giving humans some kind of special moral status, which we mostly do, at what point in evolution, if by some miracle our ancestors had all been preserved, if we could discover Australopithecus in the African jungle today, would you treat them as humans from a moral point of view or not? And the fact there is no dividing line, there is no cut-off point between our non-human ancestors and humans. There never was a moment when a non-human ape gave birth to a human baby. It was always, every animal ever born is the same species as its parents. That kind of insight, I think, does colour, rather dramatically colour, your moral considerations.
Yeah, I go further. I mean, there's this, in English, there's a famous phrase we were talking about earlier, you can get ought from is. You know, whether you can get ought, which means what you should do, from is, and science means what it is, and thing, and many people don't think you can get all the way to ought.
Yeah.
But I would argue that morality is impossible without science.
Okay.
Because I don't think you can make a decision about what to do unless you know the consequences of your actions. And without science, you won't know the consequences of your actions. And so, I would argue you cannot have any sensible morality without science.
Okay.
Now, whether it goes all the way, and it is also true, and I think it's true right now, and everything we know that I've learned as a layperson, but from reading about consciousness, I think it is true that reason is the slave of passion. That we make decisions that we think are rational that are often determined by things that are not rational, that are passion.
Okay.
So I think we as humans have to realize that we often rationalize after the fact, and that's just a part of being human. But I don't think you can, without what science is, and by science, when I talk about science, I mean empirical evidence and logical reasoning based on empirical evidence, I don't think you can come up with any rational morality. It's just impossible.
Let's bring up this subject of beauty for a second. Beauty in science. You've written a book called Unweaving the Rainbow, which talks about presumably destruction of beauty, deception of beauty by science, saying a rainbow is just the light being broken. So
Yes, the title comes from John Keats, who complained of Newton unweaving the rainbow and destroying the poetry of the rainbow by explaining it. And there was a general tendency among the Romantic poets to denigrate science as destroying the poetry. And my book, Unweaving the Rainbow, was trying to make out that science is supremely poetic. I think most scientists would agree with that to actually understand not just the rainbow but everything else is beautiful in itself. And by no means you don't even begin to destroy beauty by understanding it.
There's a beautiful bit of writing by a physicist. I wrote a book called Richard Feynman. Beautiful. You can find it online, I'm sure. Talking about how a rainbow is much more beautiful when you understand how it works. Then it actually doesn't become less beautiful; it becomes more beautiful in the process of understanding all of it.
I think it is a flower. He talks about it. I think it wasn't a rainbow; it was a flower.
Yeah, well, he talked about the flower. Everybody else talked about it. I can look it up. I can Google it, but it's either way. It doesn't matter. A flower and a rainbow, from a physicist's point of view, they're the same thing.
Right.
But surely they become more beautiful. You understand? Just like the analogy, I think, is clear in every other area of human culture. We're in an opera house. I think if you listen to a Bach concerto, it's beautiful. But if you understand the music more, if you understand all the voices and how it interweaves, it's more beautiful. And the same is true of art, of painting, and Shakespeare. So the more you understand something, the more beautiful it is. Doesn't mean you have to understand it completely not to appreciate its beauty. And I think that's what's really important about science. Some people think science, you have to be a scientist to find things beautiful. But they don't say you have to be a musician to find music beautiful or an artist. And science is the same way. You don't have to understand it completely to find it satisfying and beautiful and pleasant to learn about.
Yes. In both your recent books, you also talk about us living in very special times, you could say.
Yeah.
Because science has, in a sense, discovered principles we hadn't seen before, which explain but also let us see things we couldn't have seen before.
Yeah, I think
that
that
goes from physics but also in biology.
I think we do live in special times, but I think that's a time invariant statement. Maybe we always live in special times. We feel like, I certainly feel like in special times because look at all the things we understand now that we didn't understand before, right? But the same will be true 100 years from now. And I'm sure the same is true when Darwin first came up with evolution. It's a very special time. But
we still remember Darwin or Newton.
Yeah, but I think that's why it's the greatest story ever told so far. It's an amazing story, but tomorrow will be better.
Okay. Richard Dawkins has been a huge development in biology, in molecular biology, for instance. That's been
Yes, this is one thing that
information.
would have amazed Darwin if it would come back today, would be the fact that molecular genetics showed that life is digital. Life is a branch of information technology. And this actually turns out to be the answer to a puzzle that worried Darwin deeply in his own lifetime. So there is something, I agree with Lawrence that things are going to get better and better, but certainly the post-Watson-Crick molecular biology revolution, there's something really very special about that.
It's changed everything.
Yeah.
If I'd known about it when I was growing up, I might be a biologist because it has changed everything. It's turned that field, it's made biology so fascinating.
Well, you can be a doctor.
Yeah, I might even be a doctor.
So
let me go back and say that there is something special.
Okay.
It's not special about, I wouldn't say about science, because science progresses. But what people don't realize, and I think what is important about evolution as well as physics, is that people think the present time is the way it always was, and the way it always will be. And that's not true. In biology, the future will be different than the past, and we're not the pinnacle of evolution in any way. But in physics, it's the same thing. The current state of the universe allows us to exist.
Yeah.
It wasn't that way before, and it's quite possible that in the future it won't be that way either. That life is a brief moment in a cosmic evolution, and a brief moment that we should treasure.
Could you elaborate on that? Because I'm curious about my future or those my
Yeah,
kids.
well, the good news
What's
is
going to happen then?
The good news is you don't have to worry. There's a joke that I know in cosmology where someone like me is talking about this fact that the sun is going to die in 5 billion years, and someone in the audience says, "Did you say 5 million years?" And the speaker said, "No, 5 billion." And the guy goes, But the point is that everything we know about from physics now that allows us to extrapolate to a probable future, and a probable future, because we can't say for certain, tells us the future is miserable. But on a long time scale, what we've learned about the universe is that it's expanding faster, and that means the galaxies that we now see will one day be moving away from us faster than light, and the whole rest of the universe will disappear. But also in the new book, I point out something much worse. Much worse. And that is that this accident of existence that we now experience due to this field freezing in the early history of the universe, that field could melt.
Okay.
And if it melts, everything, all the stuff we see in the universe will disappear. The stars, the galaxies, the planets, the people, boom, all particles become massive.
You said could melt. Is there any reason to explain
The theory suggests that it's quite possible. In fact, when we measured the properties of this theory at the Large Hadron Collider, what is particularly interesting is it's on the hairy edge of being unstable. Now, the best calculations we have suggest it's probably on the stable side, but we don't know.
Okay.
And so diamonds are not forever. But the good news is that again, you shouldn't worry, because when you ask on what time scale could it disappear, the time scale is astronomical. It's not billions of years or billions and billions of years. So it's a question of principle. But it is interesting to me that the future of the universe could be that it reverts to the very simple nature at the beginning of the universe, which again, the conditions were impossible for life or even matter to exist in its present form.
Right. How about life? We're pretty good at destroying it.
Oh yes, well, these are trivial questions.
Yeah.
These grand questions. I'm curious about something that arose a few minutes ago. Science, as centuries go by, science does get better. We undoubtedly know more with better science than centuries. Not that scientists get better, scientists are okay, but the science itself builds on previous, as Newton said, standing on the shoulders of giants. That doesn't seem to be true of music or art. There's no literature that's better than Shakespeare today. It's not that as the centuries go by, literature gets better, or art gets better, or music gets better.
I think some musical scholars and literary scholars would probably disagree. They say that the music today is able to build on traditions of the past, on techniques that have been tried, and experimenting with new techniques. And so that you can make music because you're standing on the shoulders of giants. And although Luke, by the way, as you know, said it in derision. Right? He did it. He said that because one of the biggest competitors was a dwarf.
Yes.
And which was a word I shouldn't use. I know. Excuse me. But I do think that people would argue that people are freer to experiment now because people have experimented with.
They would say that and they'd be right that because Mozart and Beethoven and Bach lived, they can do experimental things now. But people still would rather go to a Mozart concert than a
Well, that's new.
At present in Amsterdam, there's a huge festival about electronic dance music, which has, I think, 40,000 people. So,
I think we were talking. Well, I don't want to.
let's get back to the future. Lawrence explained us that could be something we would like if we lived for ages. But how about human life? Science tells us evolution is still going.
Yes,
have any thoughts about that?
Well, the time scale in which evolution works is longer than the time scale that we are used to in human life or even human history. It's not on the same time scale as the heat death of the universe, but nevertheless it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. So it's not really possible to say what humans will look like in a million years' time, 10 million years' time. Most likely thing is they won't exist at all. Most species have gone extinct. And the chances are, I suppose, statistically that we shall. If we do follow Elon Musk's dream and plant colonies on Mars and such places, then I think it's an interesting possibility that evolution would diverge and we would produce new species after sufficient time.
Like you see in separate valleys in the history of life.
Possibly, yes. The gravitational field of Mars is much bigger than here, so the optimum skeleton design, for example, becomes radically different. It becomes much more like a spider and much less like a rhinoceros.
The spiders from Mars, there they are.
Well, yeah. Long spindly limbs rather than stocky pillar-like limbs. So you can make predictions like that.
But you could also argue Elon Musk's nightmare as well as his dream. And his dream might be to go to Mars, but his nightmare, which I think is it's his nightmare, is that artificial intelligence will take over. And I think that's an equally possible future, that the dominant intelligent life form on Earth will not be carbon-based. It'll be silicon-based or germanium or some other thing.
Right.
But I find that very amusing because, of course, you can imagine in 10, I don't know, you pick your time frame, 100,000 years, you can imagine intelligent machines, and they'll be debating about their evolution.
Some age of soft, squishy
but the thing is that they'll be correct when they talk about intelligent design. Because
in response to your earlier question about morality. We need intelligent design to design our morality and our way of organising society.
Right. At the same time, there's lots of, in biology or in molecular biology, we have loads of new possibilities of really manipulating life. Not only in natural forms, but even in unnatural forms.
Yes, that's just beginning.
And any thoughts on that? Should we be worried about that?
Well, there are two ways in which you can manipulate the course of evolution. There's the selection part of the Darwinian equation, and we've been doing that for centuries in agriculture, breeding dogs and carriers and things. And there's the mutational side, actually getting in there and changing the genes. And we've had the potential to manipulate human evolution in the same way as we manipulated dog evolution. Pekinese are, after all, just modified wolves. And we could have done that with humans. We haven't done that with humans. Don't want to do it with humans. And so it's not obvious why we would suddenly start using the other half of the Darwinian equation, the mutational half, to manipulate humans.
Right. But there is a concern, of course, because we now have new power because of the developments of biology. CRISPR technology, for example, allows you to cut and paste. And there's a great concern because, of course, people love hacking. People love hacking, and I remember a colleague of mine who was at MIT was saying that the students there found hacking DNA much more interesting than hacking binary, because it's only zeros and ones, and DNA has 4 base pairs, and so there of course is concern that that random hackers could. Some people are concerned that random hackers could produce life forms that are or viruses that are new viruses that are deadly. Everything I know from biology the biologists I've talked about makes me less concerned about that. Because life has had 4.5 billion years to build up defenses, 4 billion years to build up defenses.
Yeah.
And so it's unlikely we'll make a virus that's going to wipe out all of it. But you could, of course, recreate smallpox or something like that. And so there are people worried about that kind of terrorism. And one of my hats, different than the one I'm wearing now, is I'm chairman of the board of something called the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, and we do doomsday clock every year. And one of the things we do consider on a regular basis is existential threats to humanity based on technology. Yeah, the basis of that was nuclear weapons. But we've now begun to look at climate change, and bioterrorism is certainly something that is on the horizon that is a worry, I think. And we have to, fortune favors the prepared mind, so we think about the problems if you want to know about how we might be able to defend against those things.
Right. We'll be moving to the Q&A shortly. Just a final question. In your book, somewhere near the end, you write about the universe as being a present for us humans to enjoy. I thought it was a beautiful way to see things, but do you actually feel a happy child with a beautiful present?
Yeah, well, I think that that's the point. When you point out to people the truth, which is that we're a cosmic accident of no significance.
Yeah.
And so that there is no meaning, there's no purpose to the universe. Some people get depressed by that. I don't know why. And because in fact it's the opposite. If you have the attitude that, well, it is an accident, but what an amazing accident. And Richard, in one of our dialogues, which I think you can see online, just gives a beautiful discussion about how amazing it is that the mind, that we can evolve the mind that can picture the universe and experience all the things we do. And so we should just say, what an amazingly fortunate accident. It makes life more precious, not less precious.
Right.
We're here for a brief time, and we have this ability to think and communicate, and therefore every moment is more precious. So I find that more inspiring than the notion that somehow the universe is created for us no matter what we do.
Totally agree. The incredible improbability of our existence, the incredible luck. I mean, just simply the one sperm that fertilized the one egg to give rise to you, and then the previous generation and the previous generation. Right. We're just so lucky to be here. For goodness sake, don't ever dare say I'm bored or anything like that.
First pointed out to me, I think probably first got it from Richard, I can't remember, but you know, the realization, which is obvious based on evolution, is that we're only here because all of our ancestors were attracted to someone else. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, all
It's
the
a
work,
work, yeah.
they're by the wayside.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for this moment. So who can I get the floor? Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Dawkins and Professor Krauss. My question is about the problem of the backfire effect. So I would like to hear your views on street epistemology and what other solutions to the backfire effect we may have.
Backfire effect.
I think what you're doing is well, I'm not fancy enough to call it epistemology, but I think what I would argue is you know, you can of course talk at people, but it doesn't do much good. The only way, there's a long history in pedagogy that tells you the only way people learn something is to confront their own misconceptions. And so I think the way to deal with it is ask questions. And I've said it many times that I think that schools make the mistake of trying to teach facts, which is just not, I mean, there are more facts in here, although there are more misfacts as well. But what you need to do is teach people how to distinguish between the two, and you do that by asking questions. So I think the way to get people to potentially change their views is ask questions about why they believe what they do, and ultimately maybe recognize the inconsistencies of their own views. So I think teachers should teach by questioning. The questions are much more important than the answers. And parents should encourage questions in their children rather than just telling them how to do stuff. So maybe it's the same thing, but I think it's essential to deal with that.
Why? It's essential.
Yeah, I agree with that. And about asking questions of children, I used to get in terrible trouble because when people say, well, would you bring up your child to believe in Father Christmas? And I said, well, what I would say is, let's think about this. How long would it take Father Christmas to get from one chimney to the other? How long would it take to get down each chimney, etc.? And I was in terrible trouble destroying the magic of childhood. All I'm doing is getting the child.
It's not surprising, of course. It's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
But I think most children eventually,
Yeah.
they do it themselves, right? They eventually stop believing because they realize how silly it is, and I don't understand why
But they stick with God,
So anyway, keep asking questions to people on the street.
Yeah.
That's exactly what street epistemology is. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you.
So my question is a little related to the question just asked. Because if I look around in my personal life, I have the feeling more and more people are into science, and science advocacy is on the rise. And there are more and more great people publishing great books. On the other hand, you have this other group of people who believe in alternate facts. And I feel there's a divide going, and it's growing, and you see me more and more in a bubble. And I think everyone here is part of the same bubble that you're also part of. And this, to some extent, of course, worries me, and I feel these bubbles are on the rise.
Well,
And do
what
you
will
also
be your
see this?
question?
Yeah. I was just saying this.
Yeah.
So do you also see that these bubbles are on the rise, this divide is growing? And how can we ask good questions to the right people? Because you said just asking questions is the answer, but how do you make sure you reach the right people?
Richard Dawkins?
You're using right in the sense of correct, not in the sense of political right.
No.
I mean, you're right in the sense that the people outside of the science bubble who don't believe in science yet.
It's a similar question, isn't it? And I think I'm just to echo what Laura said.
Okay. So keep asking. But how do we get the bubble? There's a lot of talk about the bubble of
The bubble problem has become particularly severe because of the internet.
yeah.
Where we have a lot of bubbles, to some extent overlapping, and we tend to get reinforced in our views by the fact that we only look in our own bubble.
I think, again, it comes back, there's a famous quote I like, which is, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I'm an educator, but I think the problem comes with education. I think our methods of education are based on a time which is different. It used to be that you got your information in school, and as I say, now we don't. We have to teach people, and adults it's too late. But young people, we need to teach how to distinguish sense from nonsense, and that's the scientific method. We have to teach that process. The actual information is not important. That's not what they need to learn in high school. I mean, they have to learn how to read and write, and certain basic things, and math. But of course, math. So I think the first step is really trying to train people how to tell the difference and to realize that it's not one set of facts versus another set of facts, it's a process for deriving facts, as I said before. But to get out of that bubble, you have to have a soapbox, you have to have a platform, and that means, for better or worse, having the opportunity to reach people. And that's why I'm happy to some extent. How can I put this in a way that sounds good? That celebrity is useful, okay? And it's nice to be able to have some celebrity to be able to reach a broader audience. And so I'm happy to see that when that opportunity arises for me or Richard or other people or even the Big Bang Theory, which somehow gets people to think about science. So any opportunity to move out into different areas is really important.
Even outside the classroom, you mean?
Of course outside the classroom. I mean where people really are.
Okay.
And that means, and that's why, I think why Richard, he talked about his books which relate to literary, Canterbury Tales and Nature's Tales. And I'm less scholarly in that sense, but I would say I wrote a book called The Physics of Star Trek for a reason.
Yeah.
Because people are afraid of science, but they're not afraid of Star Trek. And so you can use that as a hook to try and reach a broader audience.
Great book, by the way. Remember. Yeah. Next question, please.
It sort of ties into the last one. Your late friend, Christopher Hitchens, used to say that he thought the United States was the last best hope of sort of Western civilization in the tradition of the French and American revolutions and Thomas Paine. Do you think he'd still say that if you were alive today?
Yeah, I think laughter is the proper response to that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I know Christopher well, especially near the end, and he certainly did move to the United States because he felt that. I think he would be less pessimistic than you might imagine.
Why?
Well, because I think his whole life was based on being willing to speak truth to power. And be willing to speak politically correct if necessary. And I think he would argue that there's still that opportunity. And look, it's not pleasant times, and on a daily basis I'm discouraged. I now, unfortunately, I'm a news junkie, and I wake up and the first thing I do is look, and it's always depressing in the United States right now. But at the same time, I see at least young people in many places becoming radicalized because of this. Because ultimately, even though you can fool people for a long time, ultimately the lies become clear. And young people are becoming active. And you're beginning to see protests and marches. And I remember I'm old enough to remember the Vietnam War. And so my hope is that this will produce a more radicalized young generation who may be willing to become activists to try and turn that around. And there are cycles. So this may be the last cycle. I mean, it may be the end. But assuming that is just ridiculous. You have to just keep trying, as Winston Churchill said.
Okay. There to the right.
Thank you. My question, in short, is why are we bad militants and activists? Why supporters of reasons and humanism and reformists for better ethics that are not based on religion? We cannot raise a lot of funding, cannot have such influence as religious people. Every time I see a campaign, or other matters actually, every time I see a campaign about refugees, environment, entrepreneurship, a lot of fundings and activities are going on. Every time I see a campaign about protecting atheists in Islamist countries or humanist association and so on, very, very small funding raised, very small means. So
I feel that's true. If you actually compare the income of humanist groups, atheist groups, secularist groups, skeptics, and so on, it's tiny compared to the income of religious nuts, and especially in America. It's orders of magnitude more money.
But would there be any reason for this being so?
So look, hey, they've had 2,000 years I'm serious. They had the institutional basis of Western civilization. You couldn't go to university unless you went to religion. So they just have a long advantage of time. And I think that's a huge part of it. They've infiltrated society much more effectively because they had much longer to do it, and built much more a close relationship with power. And it'll, I don't think it's impossible to imagine. Maybe you do. I don't think it's impossible to imagine that over time that could change. Do you think so, Richard?
I can only hope, but I think maybe partly an American phenomenon. You have these preachers in America with private Learjets and Rolls Royces and
what do you think? That's interesting because do you have a state church here?
Pardon?
Is there a state church in Holland?
No.
Okay, there is in England. It's the Church of England. It's utterly ineffectual. And some people have said that in the United States the reason religion is so powerful is because there's a separation of church and state. Because if you have a state church, then they're guaranteed funding and they don't have to become evangelical. They're guaranteed to exist. Whereas not, you have to become entrepreneurial.
Uh-huh.
And you have these entrepreneurial religious groups in the United States. And capitalism tends to work better in that sense. And so you have these mega churches that are very effective because they had to be that way. Whereas if you just had a state church, it would be just as ineffectual as the Church of England.
And they certainly contradict Jesus by saying that it's good to be rich. And Jesus wants you to be rich.
Yeah.
But then again, skeptics can use the same strategies and fly air, Learjets, etc.
I'm working on that.
I think we have time for 2 questions, if brief. So go ahead.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Professor. Okay.
Bill, use up your time. Say what you want to say. Come on.
I have a question for Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
Hi, by the way, I really love what you do. And, my best friend yesterday in the train when we came back from a party after 8 hours of Amsterdam dancing, we started talking about a subject that we disagree on a lot. And he knows we were going to this conference today, or Richard Dawkins, and he said to me that you are a hate preacher. And then we talked for half an hour, well, disagreeing a lot, but what would you say to him?
I would say produce your evidence.
Thank you, guys. My question is very short. After we migrated from Africa, like our ancestors, like we're so much different and we evolved in our consciousness. And as Richard Feynman said once, like jiggling atoms. So do you think there is like link between moving and migration and between the evolution of our DNA?
Well, when you move, when you migrate to a new place, there are different selection pressures. It's a fairly simple matter. You expect that if you move from tropical Africa to the Arctic, you're going to get different selection pressures, and so it's not a difficult question. It's to be expected, and that there is considerable diversity in the human species now because of the different geographical areas, different skin color and so on.
It's mathematical. I mean, the point is, evolution, we now understand evolution happens because there's a distribution of genes in the population, and you need, in some sense, geographical separation for the mean of that distribution to change, and that's what you call speciation.
And so it gets swamped.
Yeah, and so you need, the history is that you need that geographical separation, and that allows different pressures to change the genome.
Because the evolution is not only like race evolution, it's like consciousness evolution. That's my point.
Oh, I see. That's a cultural evolution, as Richard said, biological evolution is very different than cultural evolution, and I think they happen on very different timescales. And but what the pressures were for consciousness, there's a lot of people debate that, and I don't think we know the answer yet.
Let's go to the final question, okay?
One more woman. Yeah, one more woman.
We keep going to the mic.
Sorry, come to me. A question for Mr. Dawkins, because we talked about today science being under threat from Trump, from alternative facts, but I think science is also under threat from a topic we didn't discuss today, and that is the Brexit. And I think Brexit is very dangerous. I'm sorry, you're leaving. the European Union. Is there something we can do to campaign, I don't know, the scientific community, the scientific literature community, to help you stop doing this bad thing?
Brexit is a catastrophe. It is a self-inflicted wound. It didn't have to happen. Cameron is a complete and utter idiot. You have entrusted this highly complex, detailed question to an electorate which is unqualified to judge, and not only that, to a 50% majority, just a 50-50 majority, not even a 2/3 majority. In any decent constitution would say that a major constitutional change cannot be implemented on the whim of just a marginal vote on one particular day forever.
And the question was, can we help you?
Well,
Can we help you stop it? I mean,
I wish there was. I mean, I don't know whether the right way to stop it is to make the negotiations so difficult that the scale of the train wreck becomes so obvious. That's one approach. The other approach would be the opposite, which would be to try to negotiate a nice, gentle, soft Brexit. I don't want any kind of Brexit. I simply want to remain part of the European Union, and if England leaves and Scotland doesn't, I want to become Scottish. And if anybody wants to offer me Dutch citizenship,
because there is a bright side of this. As someone who likes to recruit academics, there's a great opportunity in Holland, there's a great opportunity in the United States. When Brexit destroys the scientific basis in England, there's a great opportunity to get the best scientists in the world here in the United States, so you should take advantage of it by
I'm so sorry for the people in line. No, there's really no more time. We agreed on this a long time ago. So I'm sorry. Next time, better, okay? I think this wraps the whole afternoon up. I must say I'm quite impressed by what has been said and has been coming out. What's the problem?
she's begging, that's all. He's the boss.
Yeah. Just for now. It's no mic. Okay, I'm sorry, it's no mic. Please, this is really it. Let us thank our guests once again for being with us on this beautiful, beautiful Brainwash session in 2017. Richard Dawkins and yours.